Hokie softball is coming off a series sweep over the NC State Wolfpack in their home opener.
Virginia Tech baseball is looking to get back on track with ACC play ramping up.
And some of the biggest stars in Blacksburg are entering the transfer portal.
All that and more on another edition of the 3304 Sports First Pitch Show. Hello and welcome inside the Center for the Arts studio right here in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm Robbie Ackerly. To my right, Taylor Bretl. And Taylor, let's jump right in. Hokie softball, a blistering start to the season.
A blistering start, to say the least. 28 wins and only 4 losses. They play their first 29 contests either at a neutral site or on the road. Finally home in Tech Softball Park, they had a series sweep over the NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah, look, the team's been on fire, Taylor, but Bree Carrico in particular.
Yeah, Bree Carrico, I mean, in her young career with Virginia Tech has been absolutely incredible. Maybe she's starting in the circle. Maybe she's coming out of the bullpen. We saw that against NC State in a series sweep. The first game via the mercy rule, second game mercy rule, third game a 2-1 contest where Carrico absolutely dialed it up. And hey, I can talk about what Carrico has done in her early career with the Hokies this season, but to really dive into the impressive numbers that the right-hander is bringing into the circle, let's turn it over to Riley Klaus.
In a season where Hokie softball is off to a cruising start, the team has been bruising the softball and riding the wave of the pitching staff all year long. After losing all-time great Emma Lemley, the team has seen an indescribable step up from their returners in the circle. How does one go from not playing at all last year to becoming the key piece of the ACC's top pitching staff? Meet Bree Carrico. Carrico's second year in the maroon and orange has shown her versatility as a Swiss Army knife on the rubber, recording outs innings 1 through 7. Carrico received D1 Softball National Freshman of the Week and ACC Freshman of the Week this past week for her impressive work versus NC State, where she showed her full deck of cards. In Game 2 of the series, when starter Sophie Kleiman struggled out the gate, Carrico stepped in and delivered the entire 6 innings of that game. A day later, the Hokies were looking for the sweep in a tied-up contest. Virginia Tech placed their trust in Carrico to keep it squared up in the 7th inning and give the Bats a chance to walk it off. That they did to win it 2-1. But Carrico doesn't just enter from the bullpen. Turn the clock back a few weeks, and she started multiple games in one day at the Hokie Invite against Penn State and Radford. In the end, outs are outs, no matter where they occur in the game. There's 21 outs to play with in each game, and Carrico makes sure the opponent's recess ends early. Whether it's in the first or in extras, the Hokies can count on Carrico.
Thank you, Riley. Phenomenal work as per usual. And Taylor, now let's shift our focus to the other diamond sport. Let's talk some baseball.
Yeah, kind of a different story for Virginia Tech baseball. Hey, you do have to give them some credit. They took 2 out of 3 against the Duke Blue Devils, but then they traveled over to Tennessee in a 1-game stand with ETSU and dropped that one by a score of 9-4. They have the Stanford Cardinal in Blacksburg this weekend. ACC play is picking up. They're looking to get back on track, but kind of a shaky start to the season.
Yeah, shaky start to say the least, Taylor. You mentioned it, ACC play starting to ramp up, a big test for the Hokies this weekend. But now let's shift away from the diamond onto the hardwood. Some big news in basketball this morning.
Yeah, the basketball news around Blacksburg is bigger than ever. Isaiah Pasha, we saw enter the transfer portal a couple days ago, but now Neo of Dallas, the highest recruit in Virginia Tech basketball history, will be headed out of Blacksburg after what was kind of also a shaky season for him. In just one freshman year here, the 20-year-old really was not able to find his footing with the Hokies, who fell short of the big dance, just fell outside of the NCAA tournament. He will be entering the transfer portal now. There's no news on the draft. He was kind of a top 10, top 15 projected pick, but after the shaky season with the Hokies, fell all the way down late second round. Maybe will he even be drafted? And with that news, seems like he's going to stay in college, but no longer in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yeah, and what looked so promising early on quickly came crashing down for the Greece native as we entered the latter half of hoop season. In my opinion, Neo Avdalis' career in Blacksburg can be summarized as one thing: a Greek tragedy. For more on the now former Hokie and his Greek mythology ties, it's Robert Bateman.
With the conclusion of Virginia Tech men's basketball season, I found myself scrolling Twitter because I was curious about how the Hokie faithful perceived the year. Mixed feelings is the best way I'd describe what I saw, but something stood out to me that was, in fact, a little distressing. People were describing Neo Avdalis' season as a Greek tragedy, and I gotta admit, hey, it's decent wordplay. Neo was a true freshman out of Kalmata, Greece, after all, and he did fall out of NBA draft projections as the season went on. However, I grew up an absolute nerd for Greek mythology, so my hunt for a better comparison began. Fortunately, it didn't take long for a frontrunner to appear. With Christopher Nolan adapting the Odyssey to theaters this summer, I wanted to start there. And as I read more and more of the Greek epic, I started to realize Neo is simply a modern-day Odysseus. Let's start with the fact both heroes grew up on the Ionian Sea, only about 5.5 hours away from each other. But I could go on for days about the fact that these two are both from Greece, so I wanted to hone in more on their stories. For those who don't know, Odysseus started off the tale red hot, as the mastermind behind the Trojan War, building the famous horse that we all know and love. For Neo, he started off the year earning ACC Rookie of the Week honors twice, while dropping 30-plus on multiple occasions. With both on top of Mount Olympus, sadly the only place left to go was down. During Odysseus' journey back to his home island of Ithaca, he had suffered a curse along the way from the Poseidon, the god of the sea, who punished Odysseus by cursing all of his men to pass away on his journey home, alongside multiple other roadblocks. All right, don't worry. Neo did not receive a curse from any deities, but he did face multiple key losses with teammates such as Tyler Johnson and Toby the Wall missing over 20 combined games. But is it really a story if the heroes don't overcome adversity? I'd argue not. Well, for Odysseus, his journey would go on for about another 10 years, and he would finally achieve his goal of making it home to Ithaca. Time will only tell what Neo decides, but he recently has entered the transfer portal, so he's leaving Blacksburg to find a new home. And they say history repeats itself, but I don't foresee any mythological creatures in Abdalos' future. However, maybe a change of scenery is exactly what the Greek star needs. Guys?
Thanks, Rob. Well, let's keep things on the hardwood here. We talked about the Hokies. Let's look at the bigger picture, the NCAA tournament. The Elite Eight is now the next thing up for this tournament, and man, Robbie, it is getting really, really exciting. I have a question for you. Out of all these 4 matchups in the Elite Eight, which one stands out to you the most?
Well, Taylor, I got to look at Purdue and Arizona because 2 of the best teams in the country, the 1 and 2 seed in their region, now squaring off. For Arizona, last game they had 6 players in double figures. Purdue, 5 players in double figures last games. Both of these teams moving like well-oiled machines right now, 2 of the best teams in all of college basketball. I can't wait for that high-level matchup.
Yeah, it'll be battle up the depth to say the least. You got to stay out of foul trouble if you want to in that one and advance to the Final Four. I'm looking at 2 teams here in Illinois and in Iowa. Illinois, the 3 seed, Iowa, a 9 seed. Took down Clemson in the round of 64, then upset Florida, and then Iowa faced a Big Ten opponent in number 4 seed Nebraska, and they'll face another Big Ten opponent in the Illinois Fighting Illini, and I think that's a very exciting story. Will Iowa be able to make the Final Four as a 9 seed? Who knows? But it's still a very exciting matchup nonetheless. And, well, Robbie, we've mentioned 3 Big Ten teams within our 2 favorite matchups. But for the ACC, the conference has seemed to disappear in these later rounds. So for more on why the conference is struggling to find success in March, here's Everett Ackerly.
March Madness is here. This time of year has been a victory lap in the past for the ACC. The years of Duke dominance and UNC excellence still rings in our ears when I hear the word March Madness. With that in mind, I thought it would be a good idea to look back at the first weekend of Madness and check out how our fellow ACC teams have fared so far compared to the rest of the field. This year, the ACC had 8 teams be invited to the tournament, 1 shy of a conference record set in both the 2016-17 and 2017-18 seasons. Comparing that number to other conferences, the SEC led the way with 10 teams, the Big Ten has 9, the Big 12 matches the ACC with 8, while the Big East and the rest of the conferences have 3 or fewer bids. Out of the gate, the ACC immediately lost 2 of their teams before the tournament officially began. Having 2 teams in seeding games, NC State was handled swiftly by Texas in their first 4 matchup, while SMU was dismantled by 31-win Miami, Ohio. Going into Thursday, the ACC field was already weaker than in many previous years, the conference feeling more vulnerable than ever. The basketball conference was looking to reestablish themselves as top dog once again. The first ACC team to go to war was Louisville, barely surviving a run from USF in the final minutes of the game to move on to round 2. Duke then followed. They were fortunate enough to secure a 1 seed and play 16th seed Siena. Clearly, Duke had already moved on to round 2 as they found themselves down double digits at halftime. They were able to mount a charge, but the cracks were already starting to show. The final ACC team to play Thursday were the UNC Tar Heels against VCU. In fairness to UNC, they had already lost their star freshman Caleb Wilson to a season-ending injury prior to the tournament. But they were still playing underdog VCU. And it looked like they were handling business as usual, as VCU went down nearly 20 in the second half. Then the momentum shifted. VCU punched back and overcame the deficit to move on. 2 ACC teams from Friday were able to punch tickets to the second round, as Miami and Virginia were able to handle business. Clemson, however, was unable to follow in their footsteps, as they fell to Iowa. Going into Saturday, only 4 ACC teams survived to the second round. While it is an improvement from a horrendous 2025 season, this is still a major underperformance from a conference that historically provides a strong presence in not just the second round, but also the Sweet 16. 4 quickly dwindled to 1, as Louisville, Virginia, and Miami were all taken down in their second round matchup, leaving only Duke to carry the torch for the ACC going forward. With only 16 teams remaining, the ACC has the fewest left. The Big Ten leads the way with now 6 teams. The SEC has 4 remaining, the Big 12 has 3, and the Big East has 2. What's happened to the ACC? The once dominant basketball conference has floundered in back-to-back years in the tournament. Once dominant teams like UNC and UVA are now relegated to first and second round exits every year. Maybe change at the top of these historic teams is needed, as UNC is the first to take that plunge. Whatever the case may be, the struggle is now being publicly noted, and it's up to ACC teams to regain public favor. Guys?
Thank you, Everett. Great stuff. And Taylor, we talked about the Elite 8 matchups, of course, the latter half of the Sweet 16 wrapping up. Who do you think, in your mind, Mr. Bretl, is coming out of this NCAA tournament victorious?
Well, I'm going to go with who I stuck with from the get-go. I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats. Now, with the Elite 8 coming up, it makes it very interesting. Arizona, in the tournament time and time again, not able to pass that Elite 8 hump. 2014, lost to Wisconsin to try to advance to the Final Four. 2015, different year, same story, losing to the Badgers once more. Also not able to make the Final Four. This is the furthest they've reached back in the Elite 8 once more since, what was that, 11 years ago now to this point. So I finally have the Wildcats taking home the crown, but you got to get around the Purdue Boilermakers first, but I'm still got to stick with it. What about you?
Yeah, Taylor, honestly, I hate to do this, but I agree. I think the Wildcats, I think it's their year. They've got a big matchup in Purdue coming up, but if they can handle the Boilermakers, I think the Arizona Wildcats will be in a very great spot, of course, to then go to the Final Four, win it, and win the national championship. Well, that's all the time we have here in the Center for the Arts studio. I'm Robbie Ackerly. He's Taylor Bretl. And for all our reporters, we say thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.